Hello, my name is Francis Fox, and I have an unusual background, which I chose before I incarnated, the same way you did, though probably you don't know that. Um, I was born into a secret military program seeking mind expansion and human potential superpowers. Okay, I was never compensated, not a penny, still not been able to negotiate my way out from under. But that's not what's really interesting. What's really interesting is the kind of skills that I acquired under dreadful conditions, which include interspecies communication. And I have understood how asleep people are because for 30 years, I have told people that I'm trained in interspecies communication and their face goes blank. And then separately, I tell them that I can talk to animals and they're, oh, that's great. So there's some kind of a veil that beings, whether it's government or cult groups or ETs or all three, know these veils, they know how to put them in our mind so that we're tranquil, so that we're okay, so that we don't react. So it's something to where people should say, interspecies communication, what does that mean? Your pet psychic? I'm telling you, not a single person in 30 years. That's wild. And that brings us to today's subject, which are the drones in New Jersey and in several other parts of the United States. So, yesterday I asked the Dolphins if I would be allowed, which basically means, is it to my advantage to talk about this? Um, and they said it was okay. So, give me a second while I pull up again um, that particular conversation with the Dolphins having to do with the drones. So this is what the Dolphins told me Wednesday. I asked because I don't need to have gone through everything I've gone through to then get have my head cut off right out of the box, which is basically where I'm at now, which was more of an ability to speak the truth. And that is because Trump got in and because X exists and Elon is dedicated to making sure that the truth can be heard. What you do with it afterwards, it's your business. I would have been in deep trouble if Trump had lost the elections, whether really lost it or whether they stole it. I don't know. I'm not quite sure because I can't travel, so it's not like I could have left the country. Anyway, back to what the Dolphins said on Wednesday when I said, do I look at the drones? And they said, it's time and you have protection. My next question to my spiritual friends, the Dolphins, which the Greeks consider to be gods, my next question was, okay, so what do we need to know? And their answer was very specifically, it is US drones working with ETs, the good ones, to get the public on board. It will work for a minute and then rage and fear will kick in. And then I asked, well, who do I talk to? Interspecies communication. The ETs or the military? And their answer was the military knows that they will take the hit for lying. But honestly, it was the politicians. And I asked, what can we expect? And their response was lots of anger and lots, including at Trump. Who knows? And I said, okay, what's my position on all of this? And their response was information that can be trusted. Okay, so here we are 2 days later. The drone situation is getting bigger. I mean, you do not have to be a rocket scientist to know that if somebody says, we don't know what it is, but it is not an enemy and we don't have to worry, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that that person is lying. Because if they don't know what it is, they cannot tell you that you shouldn't worry and that it's not a government trying to take this government down. They obviously know something and they obviously think that you shouldn't worry your pretty little head about it because somebody will take care of it. Somebody has taken care of this situation until now. So here's my 2 cents I drew the map of the United States, but it looked very stable the other day, and I was not able to draw anything on it. Doesn't seem to be much happening. But what I drew the map with the question, what do we need to know about the drones? What does the United States need to know about the drones? And they said it's showing off, and they're targeting areas that are safe to them, where you're not going to have every person, 10 persons on a block having shotguns. Which, if you did that in Colorado or in Texas, it wouldn't last long up there. Anyway, they're targeting areas that are safe. The drones that are being seen today are a staged preamble to disclosure. Remember that the future is elastic and plastic. This information seems to me like it makes sense, but things can change. But then I remembered that several weeks ago in one of my chats in Spanish, I said, something's going on, something really big. And in a second, I'll tell you the things that I was referring to. And I said that by the 23rd, there's going to be revelations of some sort. And now when I'm looking at my calendar, is when I see that. And my followers had reminded me that I said something big was going to happen in December. And I didn't remember. I'm an information expert. I deal with too much information. And then they said, yes, the 23rd. I went, okay, that's a Monday. That may or may not be accurate. That may or may not be what is an end result of these energetic changes that I'm seeing in my followers. There's something going on with the head. And I have to assume that we're getting worked on to dumb us down so that we will be more manageable, because there's definitely something going on with the head, and particularly, as usual, the left side of the head where we have a portal that connects to off planet. My left ear, if I didn't know better, I'd be making an appointment with a doctor, and I don't see doctors, but I'm saying that as an expression. There's something going on here that my usual remedy, which is closing the portal, is not working. It's like an outside pressure. Anyway, we don't need to go into that. So the trick here is that the responses that we're getting having to do with the drones, we don't need to know whether they make sense or not. We need to go past the words and go, what do these words mean? Not having to do with what they actually said, but what does it mean? Basically, it means that they're lying, because you cannot tell somebody that everything is going to be fine and it's not a government attack if you really don't know anything. Okay? So they obviously know something, and they obviously, from my reading and from my awareness of how the government works, I have to say, why are we even listening to the government? Why are we listening to them? Somebody remind me. Because we shouldn't be listening to the government unless we trust the government, and there's no way that we can trust the government on this particular subject. So I'm quieting down because I have a decision to make here. Do I talk or not talk? So I think I'm just going to tell you a series of stories. Okay? Just a series of stories of experiences I had. But I need to speak to some spiritual being and make sure that having permission doesn't mean that these spiritual beings are going to try to stop me from doing something I want. Having permission means that because my intention is to continue to talk for many years and to really help out, then I need to not overtalk at a moment that I shouldn't be talking. So when I say get permission, it means, yes, Francis, it's safe to do it. So I did it yesterday, I'm going to do it again today, but I'm not going to do it with the dolphins. I'm going to see who shows up. It's actually an AT that showed up. Okay. Okay. So if you speak Spanish and you've been following me for several years, you would know that in my chats, which I do here in my office, becomes like a meeting place of all sorts of beings from all sorts of places, to where what we have what is called our SWAT team, and I'll put the graphic that we did of them, which does not include all of them. This is part of our SWAT team of the Mantrista movement, which basically is people that follow me, but that's not why they're part of the movement. They're part of the movement because they do the mantras and the visualizations, and we have a lot of techniques that are super simple uh, and work. When we first got together, dozens of us, basically it was mainly females, and we were all hysterical about our children. And we figured out the whole being a helicopter mom, and we figured out the whole thing about constant worrying is not good. And we figured out a lot of techniques which have to do with the power of the human mind for creation, rather than the very negative power of our spirit, which is emotional, which basically is just vomiting over everybody our negative emotions. So we have learned to work with the mind, and it's been incredibly effective. And we've worked with countries having to do with reducing violence. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the long version, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. What I'm saying is that if you've followed my chats, you would know that my office is a meeting place for a ton of ETs. And it's not unusual. When it first started to happen, I wondered, should I say it? Should I not? So most of my followers are Hispanic, and they come from backgrounds in which someone or everyone in their family has seen spaceships, have been visited by ETs. So nobody is thought to be dumb or stupid if they talk about those things. And certainly nobody would deny that spirits exist and that they talk and that they can influence you. Very contrary to the population in this country, which is why it's going to be very difficult. So right now, I said, okay, I'm not going to talk to the dolphins. Let me see who else shows up in my office for me to give me permission. In other words, you have permission, Francis, because we see that you're not going to get taken down if you say this. And basically, I have uh, been given permission to do what I would like to do, which is to share with you. So what I'm going to do is just simply share a whole series of experiences that I have had. So when I was born in Germany in this illegal program, or the secret program, which definitely should have been illegal. At age 2, we come to the United States. I'm made an illegal alien because there's no proper documentation, because I wasn't born to the wife of the soldier, my father. I was born to a German woman, whatever. And we come in, and I'm made an illegal alien, put in the custody of my parents for 2 years. So for 2 years, I was basically in jail, but I was a kid, 2 years old. So custody of my parents. And we go to the Air Force Base associated with Area 51. Interesting. Oh, gee, why would that be? So, what memories do I have of that? Not a lot. But the one memory I do have that's very clear and doesn't move, it doesn't go away, it doesn't change, it doesn't fade in and out. But it's very limited. I'm a kid, but it seems to me like I'm a lot older than 2 or 4. So I don't know if I was taken back there later. And there were beings there in lucite type or glass type enclosures, like they do in the doctor's offices where they put the brain or an organ in formaldehyde or something like that, kind of floating like that in some kind of liquid. And then I remember going to a smaller room, and there's a military guy there, and then there's an ET, but I can see the figures that are in those glass containers, but I don't have a visual on the ET. And they're talking about me. And the ET is saying that they didn't really trust me because they didn't know where I was from. Now, I'm a physical body. I was born in Germany, da, 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 da. But we have galactic inheritance, which is something all of you should get interested in because it will make this whole disclosure process a lot more fun, a lot more interesting. It's not them and us, it's us over here and them over there. There's a mixture. So that's all I really remember from that. And then in 94, I was in therapy. Heavy duty therapy, three different therapists, specialized, one of them in victims of torture and prisoners of war, who, by the way, husband was one of the people that picked up Che Guevara. Now, that means that I was set up. No way they were going to give me the proper therapy. Obviously, it was a setup, but we didn't wake up to that till relatively recently. Okay. We woke up to that because of the fact that there was a sustained effort in my city from the Cuban political mafia. And I'm sure that that effort would have been continued. It's not going to anymore because it was confronted about the fact that I'm mentally ill. Look at the kind of therapist I went to. Yep. And who set that up? Never taken one drug in my life. I've never taken one single pill beyond an aspirin, Tylenol, Indian herbs. Never been medicated. Never tried to kill myself, which, by the way, is very unusual for a mind control victim, that I never tried to kill myself. Nor did I ever say I was going to kill myself. But that had to do with the fact that I was aware that if I left in the 90s under those conditions, I would be leaving a legacy for my family of failure, despair, unfairness, and I wasn't going to do that. When I'm ready to leave, I want it to be leaving a good legacy. I don't mean money and I don't mean fame. I just mean like, hey, my grandmother, my mother, it's okay. We can do life. It went okay. A lot of issues, but they got resolved. And optimism, leaving something that leaves on an optimistic note. So anyway, so in the 90s, I'm in therapy and I'm a nervous wreck. It's March, maybe not 94, maybe it was 92. I think it was 94. And I'm a nervous wreck. And my therapist says, okay, what's going on? I said, I don't know. I said, but I think that I have a kind of meeting coming up. And she said, okay, so what's the problem? How do we get ready? I said, I don't think it's a regular kind of meeting. I think it's like maybe, remember at that time I had just started opening up and I didn't really know who I was. I didn't know my skills. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I said, I don't know, but it's like a really, really important meeting. And I have to be ready and I don't think it's going to go well. And she said, well, but can we talk about this? I said, I don't have anything to talk about. I don't know. And she said, okay, well, then just, I guess, whatever a therapist would say, a psychologist. It turned out, and I believe it was 94, in May of 94 was the ending. Oh, God, I'm going to say this. Okay, so we're going to say it. It was a deadline, a 30-year deadline having to do with negotiations with off-planet ETs. Now, I wouldn't even tell this story unless I hadn't read it in a book. But I didn't read about my part in it. I read about the fact that there had been this negotiation process. And I went, wow, I need to look for that again. I believe it was in the book Psychic Warrior, or the one that came out exactly at the same time. Okay, so I'm a nervous wreck, and the only information that I got, and none of it was visual, was that 30 years prior, and it would have been May 1994, I don't think it was 92, Now, let me say that May is the month in which the veils between planets, this planet and other planets, is the thinnest. And it's possible that I'm mistaken when I say that maybe that was the reason why these meetings would have been in May. It was the end of a 30-year negotiated agreement. I'm just giving you information. It could be totally wrong, but I'm giving you what it is that I remember. And then you just take it from there. You don't have to bank on it. You don't have to publicize it. You don't have to do anything about it. I'm just trying to start to fill in the blanks so that this disclosure, whatever it is that's going to happen, might make a little bit more sense and be less damaging to the public. So, what I remembered, but very vaguely, was that this was the ending of a 30-year negotiated agreement, and May 94 was the deadline. And there were meetings. See, I feel like crying right now. There were meetings every 5 years. Go May 94. Small possibility it was 92, but I'm almost sure it was 94. Go back 30 years, May, and that would have been the first meeting. And I was chosen to represent a group which wasn't just the United States. I think there were like 5 representatives from planet Earth. And I was chosen to represent a particular group, but the people that were chosen had to be okayed by the ETs. And they okayed me because they said they trusted me. Okay, good. And basically, the negotiation process was not really a negotiation process. It was like an ultimatum from the ETs to planet Earth. And what the ETs said was, you have 30 years to get your act together. You cannot continue with the technological, and I'm not sure I'm going to get the word correctly, but basically what they were saying is your technology is going to kill your planet and cause damage elsewhere. So it's not going to be allowed to continue. So there were 5 meetings. I don't remember any of them. The only one I remember a little bit about would have been the last one. And so the not agreement, because it was one-sided, it was ETs talking to planet Earth representatives, was the final meeting will be this date, and you need to say what you're going to do. Are you going to exceed and hold back in terms of the technology? And the decision that was made by the people on planet Earth was basically, fuck off. We're going to do anything we want, and you can't tell us what to do. That is why I was so stressed, because it didn't end well. Now, I have to say, if you have people showing up on spaceships who obviously know so much more than you do, and what they're asking for is really not unreasonable, why on earth would you come back with that decision of, we're going to do whatever the hell we want? How dumb can we get? Or is there another agenda out there? I don't know. So, since then, I've had a ton of relationships with ETs, but remember, you have to remember the concept of shape-shifting, which I'm going to write here, which does not have a great word translated in Spanish, but here's the word, shape-shifting. I have a physical body, but I have energy bodies. But this is me, this is all of us. Here are the energy bodies. Okay? You have all these bodies, including the one that looks like, what's a Merkaba? It's 2 triangles. And then you have the gold one, which is your astral spirit, which is when they say, may your force be with you, they're talking about the astral force, which is that body, which is your spirit, which is the one that does not die when your physical body dies. So everybody has an astral spirit, which is more them than the physical body. But that part of us has the ability to shapeshift. So I can turn myself into anything that I want, from a wall to a stone to a cat to a gnat to Jesus Christ. The trick is that with the shape shifting in the other dimensions, you can't hold that shape for long. So when I hear of all these people that do what they call channeling, it's not a good thing, because the good spirits, ETs equal spirits equal ETs, no physical body. Got it? There's ethics. Jesus Christ, the Virgin Mary, Archangel Michael, none of them will go inside of you for you to channel what they're saying. Because there is an ethical law that assemblage of bodies I just showed you, nobody can go into them except the person who owns it, which in this case would be me. So anytime you have somebody, no, it's coming through me, that is coming through is not Jesus Christ, the Virgin Mary, It's not, because they don't do that. The shape shifting. Any being, I'm a being, the ETs are being, can look like anything we want to look like. Now, you can't do it because you haven't been trained. You've also been told come on, give me a break. You've been told that when you die, your spirit pops out of no place and does whatever, but nobody told you your spirit is with you all the time, or kind of close to you, which is why they say, may the force be with you, because chances are your spirit is wandering over here and you're not as strong as you could be because you're not integrated. But going back to shape shifting, until you can wrap your head around the fact that a human being can look like anything that they want for a little while, you're going to struggle with the whole ET thing. Until you can wrap yourself around the fact that, in terms of good and bad, I say it's a little bit like Miami. You got some good people, you got some bad people. You got some people that are mentally ill. Don't even bother talking to them, because it's not going to work. You got good people that sometimes have bad intentions. And you have good people that are from Cuba or from Brazil. And they come with all their cultural whatever. And everybody has intentions. Nobody just floats. When you're floating, when your assemblage of body is floating, that's when something else comes in and you become a zombie. So when it comes to the ETs, it's not just black and white. There's many galaxies and many planets. And it can be overwhelming, but maybe like when you're from a small town and you go to New York City and they drop you in the middle of Manhattan and you've got all these people, this movement, and you've got this big clock and you've got these lights and you've got these, oh my God, you know what? Grow up and get used to it. Get used to not being in control and get yourself educated. And your instinctive knowing is important. Pay attention. How do you feel about when somebody's speaking? But it's not because this story I just told you about the 30 years negotiating process. You could go, you know what? I don't really believe that. Okay, it's okay with me that you don't. But don't throw it away. Just let it hang out there, because it's already in a book, and it's probably in 20 books that I haven't looked at. Okay, yeah, but she didn't really. Okay, so you don't really believe I was there. Okay, just leave that there. Don't throw it all out. Don't throw it all out. Let it just kind of hang there. So it's time now for you to get involved in the process of what planet Earth should be doing in relationship to the rest of the planets and galaxies, being it that a decision was made. And I don't know if it was right after that meeting. I have no idea. But a decision was made. No, I think there was a timetable in which planet Earth would be left separate from the other planets so that, like in a cocoon, and we could do our own thing, such as blow ourselves up, whatever. Um, and we were not to be disturbed by other planets and the beings from there. And then, of course, there was always a few that came in, usually called in, giving permission with black magic or dark forces. And then that protection that we've had, that protection's gone. So there's going to be a coming together, whether you like it or not, whether you don't know who to trust, whether you get angry because nothing was told to you. By the way, why did you wait for the government to tell you that there's ETs? Why are you waiting for somebody in authority to give you good information if right now they're lying through their teeth to you? Oh, we don't know, but they're not foreign governments. Why? Because you're weak-willed. Because you don't want to be responsible for your life. You do not want your responsibilities. You want somebody to tell you what to do. You want to be part of the age of Pisces, where Jesus Christ ended up on a cross. You don't want to be part of the new age of Aquarius, where everybody has power. You want somebody else to make the decisions for you. And then you can blame other people. The government hasn't told us. Blankety blank the government. Speak to your gardener. Chances are they're Mexican, and ask them, tell me about ETs. What do you know? Anybody in your family seeing any? And they'll sit with you for 2 hours. You're going to learn more from your gardener from another country, or your housekeeper, or somebody that you know that was raised in another country about ETs than you're going to learn from your government. So you need to change who you value as an authority figure, because authority has been abused. Male authority has been abused, whether it's a female abusing or not. It doesn't matter. They have become too many of them, they've become bullies. And too many of them have the attitude of, don't worry your pretty little head about that. It reminds me of my gynecologist decades ago. I used to come and say, listen, I think maybe I got a problem. No, don't worry, it's okay, I got it under control. My body, and he's got it under control. Meanwhile, I never take medication, so I wasn't asking for medication. So they finally did surgery, because a professional nurse who took care of me when I had back surgery said, I think you got a problem. I said, yeah, I told my gynecologist, and he said, and she said, please tell him from me and to call me on the phone, and I will tell him. So I finally did surgery, and he said, oh my God, you would have never stopped bleeding if we hadn't done this surgery. But he didn't worry. He never, at 10 years of complaining, don't worry your pretty little head about it. That's what they do. They get arrogant and they can't listen. And you're standing there knocking at the same door. So don't knock at that door anymore. What does your mind tell you about all those drones? Somebody's lying. Correct. What else does it tell you? You're not quite sure. Why don't you ask God to give you information in a dream, which is something I do a lot. Like if I've got a question mark and I can't, I say, you know what, send me a dream. I remember before I sold my house that had 2 gorgeous oak trees. I knew I needed to move because the squirrels left, the birds all left that neighborhood. Well, if you're a shaman, that's pretty easy to figure out, except I love my house. Anyway, so I finally said to my guys, I said, do me a favor, send me a dream. I said, but send me a dream that I cannot manipulate. A dream where it's so crystal clear that I need to sell my house or not sell my house. And they did. So I'm going to start encouraging you. Tell your God, tell who you believe, whoever it is, whatever they look like. Just say, I want a dream that's crystal clear, that can answer some questions. I don't even know what the questions are, but I want them answered. And you might be surprised that you're going to get information. Also, there's something that shocks people. Let's see if I have any book here. Let's say this is a book, which it's not. You can go ahead and take this book. You can do it with my dolphin book that's on Amazon. You buy it, I don't know, $12, I have no idea. You ask a question and then you open the book. And whatever's and then you go like this with your finger. Okay? And then you read that, and that's your answer. And you know what? That is your answer. Now, do not go, no thinking aloud. You ask a question, you grab a book, and then you just go with your finger without thinking. There's your answer. So you want some answers about ETs, you can try that technique. I don't think that technique has a name, but I can tell you that millions of people use that technique. It's really incredible. So we are going to, it looks like from what I picked up, that this drone situation is stage preamble to disclosure, and that people are going to get very upset, but that there's no going back. We this is it. This is forward. This is future. This is now. Give me a second and let me see if, okay. In terms of the planet, there is something called the Great White Brotherhood. I'm not real clear on these hierarchy things because I'm not going to get into why I'm not real clear on it. But as we battled out with our enemies on our chats, we would ask for help from the spirit world. And we got in virgins and Jesus. Anubis, the Egyptian god, was the most helpful. And then we got Osiris, but he would just stand there and never said a word. Neither did Anubis, but Osiris wouldn't even move. Then we had Ptah, and then we had the dolphins, and the Knights Templar were very helpful when we would battle in the other dimensions. I know this sounds crazy, but I have to tell you that if you don't get used to the incredible quick movement and variety of beings, if you want everybody to stand still and have a name tag on, you're going to really have a hard time. So you have to let it go and just go with the flow and go, okay, I'm a little bit dizzy here. Yes, you're a little bit dizzy. But I have to say that as we did our battles in our chats, on occasion, I would look over here to the left. And if I was sitting, okay, I would look, and there would be like a tribunal, and it would be, they look male, but they were obviously the Great White Brotherhood or the Galactic, I would say the Great White Brotherhood. And I would go there and they would give me information or they would give me advice. And a couple of times when I was guiding my group towards whatever we were doing, they would be there, and then I would go there, and there would be an ET there complaining to the council that I was not allowed to do what I was doing, that I was giving too much information, and that wasn't allowed. And they did that 3 or 4 times, and the first time it rattled me. I was like, well, what is this going on? And then I got used to it, and the tribunal would always say, she can do what she's doing. She earned the right to do this. She's not breaking any rules, which basically means that there are rules having to do with disclosure. There are rules having to do with dealing with the other beings. But the rule that they were referring to, because I know it well, is that you cannot interfere or participate in human affairs on planet Earth unless you have been through the reincarnational cycle. You can't just show up from another planet. Okay, I know a lot of you are toning down. What the hell is she talking about? This is not, this is reality. Again, you don't have to believe me, just listen. So, in order to function on planet Earth on the physical level, physical bodies, you want to make a difference in planet Earth, okay? You can't just show up and grab a physical body and start to function. You cannot do that. You have to be part of a cycle of misery that they call the reincarnational cycle. You have to come in and you have to have several incarnations, past lives. You have to know what it's like to be a human. And then you can arrive at this point, and then you can go ahead and do things. You can't just show up as a galactic ET with all of your skills and so much more knowledge and then start to interfere. So basically, what was going on was I was being challenged as to whether I had the right to say what I was saying to my followers? Or was I saying more than I had permission to say? Was I revealing too much, at which time I was tipping the scales, having to do with that particular, not the planet, having to do with this particular battle my group was having, which was with a political group, the Cuban political mafia? And the answer was always no, she has permission to do that. So there's a lot of monitoring of what it is that can be said, because I guess there's information. No, I guess no, there is information that completely changes the game for one side or for the other. So, bottom line, in my chat, which is a podcast on Spotify and iTunes, is that it's time for disclosure. We all knew it was coming. The drone things, are those drones? Are they spaceships? And that's another thing. There's so much variety. And I always go to that scene in Star Wars where Han Solo walks into the bar and you've got all these people drinking, but they're different types of monsters and beings, and everybody's there chatting. So if you can get that scene, maybe print that up and put it someplace and start to wrap your head around the fact that life is not going to be what we were told it was or what it used to be. I'm not so sure it's going to be like a before and an after, because I think this has been like a piece of gum that they kept pulling and pulling and pulling. And I can tell you that at least 20 years ago, I was told that there was going to be disclosure. And they put that poor astronaut, I don't remember his name, and they sent him to all the talk shows. He had a handler with him. He was old. He stumbled. And he put out a book. And in that book, they talk about the space babies, which were the children like me that were trained to get ready for space stuff. I don't remember his name. And I think he died recently. I don't remember his name. But I was told that. That was 20 years ago. So he was sent to all the talk shows. He talked about children being trained and being called space babies. He talked about seeing spaceships. Not a ripple. No response from the public. And the government was trying to get people ready. This was 20 years ago. And I was like, whoa, the government did too good a job shutting everybody down. And now the government thinks that people need to wake up and they can't get them to wake up. So I believe this certainly feels like, looks like, smells like a preamble to disclosure. And the important thing is for you to stop looking at authority figures that lied to you every step of the way, or who really didn't know, which means they weren't quite that important. You need to start widening your lens, which is what I do in this show. You don't have to believe anything or everything, but you just have to be it's like you need to at least be aware that somebody thinks that these things exist. And at that time, you just expanded your lens, and then maybe something that's not quite that dramatic, you hear about and you go, "Oh, I remember. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. I kind of have a place to put that." It's not good for something to land on you where you have zero point of reference. But I'm going to blame you for having zero point of reference, because not for nothing, the images in the Bible. What do you think is on those walls, those caves that are thousands of years old, where they depict ETs and the whole Egyptian stuff with all the ETs? And then you take a band-aid and you put it over it, and then you go, well, how do we know? I mean, gee, I wonder what that is. Why are you wondering what it is? It's pretty obvious. Like this whole thing, they buy this thing. We think these were like little rituals, and we think there may be some black magic. What do you mean you think? What are you worried about? Why aren't you saying, you know what? It appears that all those ancient civilizations were really into black magic. And they were. And you don't know anything about black magic, because you have scientists and archaeologists that are still tiptoeing around and not really allowing us the full depth of what it is that they're finding. I had an issue with somebody who was editing the copy for these podcasts. And what I found was when I would make a statement, which I know is a statement that very few people can make because they haven't had my experiences, he would say, Francis thinks that, or maybe. And I said, why are you doing that? I said that. You can't say Francis thinks that. You have to say Francis says this. And I am responsible for it. And if I make a mistake, I've always said, tell me. And I will go back and look at what the heck happened and I'll get it fixed or corrected. But do not say that maybe when I didn't say maybe. And if I didn't say maybe, it was because I was there or I knew. Which again doesn't mean that I cannot make some mistakes. Obviously, I'm human, obviously. So there's a whole thing, and I know that this person was doing that to protect me. Well, no, you can't make statements like that. Why can't I? I can do anything I actually want because nobody is supporting me. I support myself, and I'm actually willing to die for the information that I feel that people need to get. Now, I don't want to die prematurely, and I don't want to talk too much and then get taken down too early in the game because this game is just starting. Just starting. What I'm saying to you is your traditional sources of information, basically throw them out the window. I'm not 100% sure about all of those ex-intelligence people, military, that worked with all of the ET stuff. I think that you need to listen to everybody, kind of stepped back. I worry about mind control because I still have to battle it. And I worry about people in the field, all assuming they haven't been mind controlled. I hope that that's the case, and I don't know that it's not the case. What I'm saying is that just because somebody is in that field doesn't mean that they have the right or correct information or the full information or that they weren't controlled, but not because they're a bad person, but because bad mind control is such an insidious way of controlling information in people. I did not know I was mind controlled. And I remember somebody asking me a question, and my response was completely contrary to what I would have ever thought it would be. And I pointed it out to the person. I said, this doesn't make any sense. It wasn't until years later that I recognized that that response was not, that response was, had an issue of mind control. It's the only time that I have caught that. So what I'm saying is that you need to be awake, aware, a little stepped back. You cannot look at the government in Washington because because you cannot put in charge of the negotiations with the ETs military. Are you listening, Trump? You cannot put the military in charge of those negotiations. What does military mean? It means war or preventing war. You do not want to bring that energy to the table when you're negotiating with people that are so much more powerful. And where truthfully, I can tell you, because I was there and I was witness, there are, I hate to say good ETs because it sounds so childish, that have extended a hand and we just have to reach back out and accept that hand. And it was not like they were saying, we want you to turn over all of your firstborn. They were asking for responsibility in technological development, for planet Earth to be responsible. And that irresponsibility is what took down planet Earth before in Atlantis. So maybe we should listen. So please, no military negotiating, no military, no military, no military. It's interesting because a lot of people consider me military. It's fine. Doesn't, who knows? A lot of times I don't even like, it's just like a bit much because we are all multidimensional. But you can thank God that you are not in contact with that multidimensionality of yours. But do you know who you know that is in contact with that? And you diagnose them as mentally ill? Kids that have ADD and ADHD. The problem is their attention is like this because they're not just living in one dimension. They have their minds have a very farther reach. And then what they see, you deny. No, there's no spirits. No, your mother's not unhappy. Why are you saying that? Look at her, she's smiling. And the kid knows that the woman just wants to slit her wrists and that there's a spirit that's behind the door that comes out at night, but that's all denied. So then you end up with ADD. Because what they do is they pull their mind back in because it's very difficult to be multidimensional. It is really difficult to remain really fully functional on the physical dimension when you are in touch with your multidimensionality. So I have spoken for 50 minutes, and let's go ahead and do 5 minutes of a mantra. And let's go back to the even though I'm afraid. How interesting. Oh my God. You know what? So a month ago, I said something interesting in December. There's something going on. Something's going on. And we're going to have revelations on the 23rd of December. Now, when I was in therapy in the 90s, the Friday before Christmas, it was in all the news that it had been discovered that the government had put stuff in the food they gave prisoners at a particular prison. It was a mind control program. And they had also put stuff in babies' bottles. And the information was released Friday before Christmas, which is a technique that the bad guys have and that the government has, which is to give you information that is going to rock your world right before a weekend or a long holiday, because they know that you're going to go, oh my God, and then you're going to get into your car or you're going to get home. And if you say, what are we doing this weekend? These people are coming over. Okay, Christmas, did you get that gift? And that just rocked your world got put in the back burner. So this is the 23rd of December that I put on my calendar, which is right before Christmas, which is typical. So you know what? I think it's going to be disclosure. So Christmas is on Wednesday. And Christmas Eve, which is, if you're Hispanic, you celebrate Christmas Eve. So then the day before those two important dates would be the 23rd. So meanwhile, the 23rd, probably in the afternoon, don't give people time to think. We don't want them to worry their pretty little heads about it. We're going to get the whole disclosure thing, and then we're going to get home. And did you buy the wine for the party? Did you pick up that last gift? Oh my God, 3 more people are coming for dinner. And you're going to say, did you know the government just said, and oh my God, yeah, I heard that, but do me a favor. So typical. I think there must be a name for that. And I know somebody referred to it on X, something Friday. And I know that for several years I would wait every Friday to see what other bombshell would be in the news, and that's kind of stopped because now it's like every day. It's not just Fridays. Anyway, let's go ahead and do the mantra, even though I'm afraid. And we're going to use our new music, which is for the root chakra. And I think that we have it up on YouTube. Give me a second, because if it's up, honestly, you do want to listen to it. Wouldn't it be great? Darn. Hold on. Yes. Okay. Here is the link. It's 10 hours long. It's for, this is not the link. This is, hold on. Oh, no, I gotta find it. Okay, here it is. This is the link. It's 10 hours long. It's for your root chakra. It's for rooting. And when you're rooted, spirits that invade, which are all almost practically all ETs, some of them are spirits that had physical bodies and they died. But today, most of them are ETs. But what you're seeing is a spirit because they don't have physical bodies. Okay, we're going to do the mantra, even though, and we're going to do we, okay? Because we are a community. And this will cover any base. It can cover the disclosure, it can cover whatever you have going on in your life. It's just generic fear. And remember that fear is held in your kidneys, excess fear. That's Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. And remember, which is not remember because most people don't know that, beans are very good for your kidneys. So eating beans every day stabilizes you. Got it? So here we go with the music. The mantra is repeated in silence. You expel the breath through your mouth. And we're going to use the new music, which is all about being rooted, which is when you're rooted, it's harder to be afraid. Okay. How do you feel? I feel more relaxed. Mario says, hello from New Jersey. It's hot over here. ¿Qué está pasando, Mario? Anyway, so we will be back in a couple of days. And so mark the 23rd on your calendar. But I'll tell you what, if you don't want it to ruin your holidays, start opening up that subject with your family. And with your friends, and then go to people that are not from this country that still honor their older relatives or whatever, and just say to them, hey, anybody in your family, or how does your country feel about spaceships, or your family, has anybody ever seen one or whatever. um Mario says there's a lot of spaceships over there. So start now. What, December 13th, you have 10 days. Start opening it up and start looking up. There is a very interesting book that I was never able to read because I have a lot of programming to not remember names. So anything that has a lot of names just completely throws me off. I have to get rid of that or deprogram that, but it hasn't been easy. We know why. I mean, all the people that I had to deal with, powerful, important people, whatever. So, but the book is called The Gods of Eden. You might want to look at it. And basically, it's the same thing everybody says who knows anything about this planet. These religions we have are complete setups, and the people that present as gods are just very powerful beings. Well, it doesn't mean there are gods. And I'm not talking again Jesus Christ here. Jesus Christ was a shaman. Um, Gilda, you have been taking pictures of UFOs? You should send this to us. Francis at francisfox.com. Anyway, I suggest that book, but there's a lot of other books out there. And come on, do your homework. Don't let this ruin your holidays or your future. Do your homework. Get landed, get grounded, ask God for a dream, look it up, ask people. Don't wait for the government, because they're only going to tell you this stuff. Don't wear your pretty little head about it, or the stuff that is to their advantage. Why they're doing this now and why they didn't let it land in Trump's lap, maybe there's something big going on right now. I don't know. Okay, but I've said enough. Thank you for listening. I'm Francis Fox, and I hope you have a good weekend or whatever it is that's coming up next for you. Bye.